In late 1968, Chris Jennings arrives in Collinsport with the intention of finding out how his brother Tom Jennings died. Chris meets with his young sister, Amy Jennings, who has been at Wyncliffe Sanitarium since the death of Tom. Chris is disturbed by the news that a full moon will be that night. Strange noises can be heard in Chris' room at the Collinsport Inn, and the innkeeper is attacked and killed. Whilst in the woods, Elizabeth Collins started hears a growling noise coming toward her. Amy appears, and whatever it was, goes away. Elizabeth describes it as an animal dressed as a man. David Collins shows Amy the west wing of Collinwood. She talks to a ghost named Quentin Collins on an old telephone they find. Chris cuts short a date with Caroline Stoddard in order to go back to his room where he turns into a werewolf. The spirit of a woman named Magda Rakossi speaks through Caroline with a warning. Chris interrupts them before anything substantial can be learned. David and Amy return to the West Wing, where several strange things happen to them. They discover a sealed-off room belonging to Quentin. In the secret room they find a skeleton. They get a cradle from the old house and put it in the secret room, as they were instructed to. They plan to play the game with Quentin and his ghost, along with that of Beth Chaves, a servant at Collinwood, during the latter part of the 19th century. Amy and David dress up and pretend to be Beth and Quentin. They bury the skeleton from the secret room, and David strings a wire across the staircase, causing Roger Collins to fall down the stairs. Meanwhile, Professor Timothy Elliot Stokes believes that Collinwood is possessed and brings Janet Findlay, a medium, to investigate. David and Amy warn Quentin that Janet Findlay's arrival. Janet sees the sign of the pentagram in Joe Haskell's face. She warns Joe to be careful of an animal that walks as a man. David and Amy trick Janet into going through the secret passage from the drawing room to the West Wing. She discovers Quentin's room and is tormented by his spirits while trapped in there. When Janet next appears, she falls down the stairs to her death. Joe learns Chris is a werewolf and shoots Chris after he changes. However, the bullets do not injure him. Joe goes insane and kidnaps Amy to protect her from Chris. Dr. Julia Hoffman has Joe Haskell sent to Wyncliffe for treatment. Julia and Barnabas Collins also discover that Chris is a werewolf. Barnabas locks Chris in the secret room in the Collins mausoleum, so he will not be able to hurt anyone when he transforms. David visits and distracts Chris while Quentin poisons his drink. The ghost of Beth leads Julia and Barnabas to the cottage, where they find Chris dying. David tells Quentin he does not want to play the game anymore. Quentin touches his arm and makes it feel like it is on fire. Maggie Evans hears David screaming and the sound of a man's laughter. Ned Stewart shows up at Collinwood looking for Chris and reveals that Chris was engaged to his sister, Sabrina Stewart. Chris and Julia visit Sabrina and find she has been in a state of shock for the last 2 years, since the last time she saw Chris. The ghost of Quentin chases everyone out of Collinwood and into the old house. Barnabas and Julia go to the mausoleum to release Chris. However, he is still a werewolf despite the absence of a full moon. Julia thinks there must be some connection between the ghost of Quentin and Chris' werewolf condition. While searching Quentin's room, Professor Stokes finds I Ching wands and is convinced they may be the key to understanding Quentin. Maggie goes to Collinwood to find David. When she does, he falls unconscious. Later, Julia informs everyone that David is in a coma and will die soon.